Hey everybody, BTO Pro here, and this morning, the last video was last night, the steampunk goggles, glasses, no more contacts. I know. So this morning's head bobbing will be provided by The Algorithm. Awesome, crazy EDM, robotic techno type of vibe on Spotify. So we're digging into simple popover more. Wanted to show a convention here. So last video, we left off on this, and I tweaked it a little bit. So said, okay, we've got a popover, show what the actual thing is, right? So what we're working on is a tour, and the tour then points to the correct item and then has the stack, if you will, of like, here's what's the next thing, here's what's the previous thing, right? And then it points to the thing in question no matter where it is, right? So it's pointing to the bottom of the add content area, right? Realigns itself, and then we can stop the tour, right? So what I showed last video is that is actually able to be registered, and I tweaked the language a little bit, cleaned it up for the way I want it to work, is able to be defined by just parsing the shadow root that we already have. So in this case, that settings panel is generated by an alley collapse. And so the alley collapse, having this attribute of data simple tour stop is enough for our little script or feature, I don't really know how to describe it, our little behavioral item to do its work. So we're going to look for all those tour stops. Then in the tour stop, all right, because that'll provide us the reference to the item to point to, right? Which is what this is doing. It's adding to the tour. Then we're going to do find the stops title and content. And again, I tweaked the language a little bit from the last video, just so we're on the same page, right? So that's going to then take whatever's inside of this, and this is going to take whatever's inside of this. And voila, we have our tour. So I said, okay, but I don't want to screw this up. I'm going to use this all over hacks, potentially use it all over other places. Outside of the window.hack store instance add tour thing, this is very generic functionality that can be abstracted. So I am going to keep it as a behavior for the time being specific to hacks, just because I have this little wrapper that makes my life easier. However, let's look at add tour or add to tour, right? So all add to tour is doing is bubbling up a message that says, yeah, that tour, you actually have to add it into hacks. So what I could do instead of, centralizing this here, I could provide the wrapper in a SuperClass. So a SuperClass is, think of it like part of an element or an idea. So it's not a full element by itself. It's not a full class even. It's like, what would you like to mix into another class? If you're familiar with Polymer actually calls these like mix-ins. So here's an example of one I have. So we have a utility that's called win events element. And a win events element, to jump to it, is a superclass. So it's extending whatever the thing is that it's put in. It doesn't do anything by itself. And what it's doing is it's then mixing in this functionality, in this case, to just do a very simple, convention I was finding myself doing all over the place, which is adding and removing event listeners based on connection and disconnection. So when an element gets added to the page, I want to be able to connect global window-driven events. When it's removed, I want to remove them. Very basic, right? That's something that you might use as a repeatable pattern over and over and over again. But it's not a full element. It's not really a function because I want it to tie into the events. So if we see here, so I get win events, and then the way that I'm implementing win events in this case is, I think it's like underscore win, yeah. So this is probably a convention I'll clean up at some point, but it's basically saying, if you see this event on the window, then just run this function internal to me. Shorthand saves us having to write it over and over again. Okay, so you get the gist of what a superclass is. So we have another one, it's behavior. So Nikki wrote this one. This one does color contrast, which is pretty cool. It'll look at the background and be like, because of the luminosity of the background, luminance, whatever you want to call it, you have to have black or white text, right? So you get a nice clear contrast flip. It's mathematical formula, color contrast. Why do we leave us open to accessibility, disability issues? So again, that's not a full element. That's like a feature of many things that you just want to behave that way automatically. So that's kind of the vein of what we're in. So that's very similar to this, right? So I might abstract this out later to be very generic and, just something that the tour does. But for the time being, let's make this something that any of my hacks elements, because there's a lot of elements in hacks core, any of them can implement. So I want anyone to be able to subscribe and say like, hey, I have a tour stop as well. And I want those to check in without a central registry. So I want, and this is kind of a design principle we go for, is that everybody checks in when they need to check in, no matter what application we're building. So there's no assumption, for example, there's no assumption, oh, you're going to have a modal. It's, hey, let's go ask for the modal. And then no matter how many other things on the page ask for a modal, if we just leverage the same modal, that gets priority, right? So whether I'm clicking a button in the page here, in hacks, in some other random thing, I want them all to use the same fill in the blank. In this case, the blank here is the tour. So no matter what you click or access, I want you to use the same tour, right? We want this number to go up, but I don't know when it's checking in. So what we're going to do is standardize this so that I don't end up having to write it over and over again, right? And then I screw up and go, the convention changed, and I'm rewriting this everywhere. So what I do when I find a pattern like this is I copy it. We're going to copy it out of first element here. I'm going to get rid of this because this will help me understand if it works. And then we're going to come up to, it's something I already, we'll add a new one. So we're going to do import, and this is going to be, what would we call this? Hacks tour finder. Import hacks tour finder from LR webcomponents / hacks body. Now, because these are in the same, they're in alignment, I could just reference them directly. I don't know that that's more efficient or whatever, but let's actually do that. We'll do // and then I'm going to put this in, whoops, not that. It's going to be hacks tour finder.js. And then for these ones, let's do the same. Do the same thing so that I don't end up coming back through later and doing it. That's in hacks body behaviors. That's a different project. Okay, so we have the map reference, we got the dialog, and we've got this hacks tour finder. So I'm going to make a new file called hacks tour finder.js. And in hacks tour finder.js, we're going to start it out similar to, in this case, alley behaviors. So this is going to be hacks tour finder. All right, so just right now, it is going to take this and we are going to mix it into something we already have, in this case, the tray. So that's the basic, right? You have this thing, this piece of a class coming from somewhere else, import it, leverage it, and extend a base class, but you wrap this functionality into it is kind of the way to think about what this is doing. So now in Tour Finder, I can paste that in. All right, so now we've got our starting point, and in this case, it's saying, hey, this is the lit element ready lifecycle. There's very little specific to hacks in this. I'll probably clean this up later to be, just for adding tours. Once I play around with this and see that it does what I think it will do for me. So I'm going to put this in first updated. Another thing I could do is, we can move this to connected or disconnected so that we remove things from the tour. At the moment, I don't have support for recalling and destroying the things in the tour. So I'm going to leave myself a note, actually, because I didn't think about that until right now when I said it. We're actually off by a parens as well. So let's see, we got try if for, and then we've got this needs to move in a level. Okay. So, and then just for consistency, there we go. Okay. So We're exporting this constant value. It's a superclass. It extends whatever the superclass is that's been passed into it. And we're going to mix in first updated as the life cycle. But then we have to make sure that there isn't already a call for first updated. That's how you make sure. So if I do first updated, and you see I have it there. It's a little annoying in writing things this way, but this is just saying if something before me has the same function, run its function. So you can kind of get this cascade of stuff kind of tying into the same hook almost in the life cycle. So, and then I'll take this and we will package this into its own little function in case someone will want to call it directly. So do this dot. Usually this is not a real thing. I use double underscore to imply like this is a private function. Don't call this. Or no doubles to be like, yeah, you could call it if you really wanted to. So, okay. I was going to put this in its own function. And the name of this function would be discover Tor stops. Okay, and we'll call it discover hacks Tor stops for the moment. And then we would just invoke it. And then just for consistency, we'll do constructor, super. Okay. So this should be enough to work with what we have currently. So now I've abstracted this piece out. It can be mixed into other things. So let's save it and let's save hacks train, see if it works in our little test case here. Okay. Reload. All right. No JS errors. Oh, there's a JS error there. What is that one? Failed to fetch dynamically imported module. Let's see what that is real quick. I have been doing some messing with some stuff. So lib, and it's claiming it's hacks dependencies. Tray exists, yeah. Autoloader, app picker, toolbar. Maybe there's actually an error in our element. Let's see if it loads. It didn't load. So I did do something wrong there. Oh, okay, there it is. There's lib hacks map. I see. So I made the paths to this wrong. They're in the exact same folder tree level. There we go. Hey, that looks better. Okay. So now scoot this over, just make sure there's no errors that pop up. All right. So we've got our Tor loaded. Still found everything. Now that is, you can ignore that. That's still, I'm working on something in the page there. So that's local development. It's not related to this. So it still found my 4 things. Sick. Okay. Now to demonstrate why I just did that, right? From a reusability standpoint, I'm going to now take the Tor finder. Let's find something else that it would be nice to document. That's in something else entirely. It might be nice to point to like the tooltip or this bar as to what these do, right? So it might be nice to point to the drag handle. Perfect example. Okay. So I know that that's in the, I think it's toolbar drag. Maybe not. Let's search for the word drag handle. Drag. What do I call it? No, it's just drag, or add column is an easier one. Okay, there it is. It's in a plate context. It's the issue. I knew there was some other stuff here. Okay, so this is actually part of what I wanted to discover. So this is a vanilla web component, right? So I'm going to wrap this in here, and we'll see that it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to put it in. Hacks Tor finder, and then let's actually go and find that drag, right? Because I want drag to be able to be the thing that shows its items. So we've got drag handle. It has some items located in it. we're going to do this thing where I kind of fake what the slot is. And I might end up cleaning that up anyway. But so we'll div slot equals tor. And this is what I've done previously in order to give me data hyphen. Oh, actually, I don't even need to do that. I could just do it within this tor piece. Yeah. So in the tor piece, then I've got div data hyphen stop title. And the stop title is going to be drag and drop. Drag element handle div, and then this is going to be div data stop content. And it's going to say click the drag handle, and we'll space it out so it's nicer to read. Div, okay, this is going to be a data hyphen simple tor stop to indicate that this is the item we want to point to. Click the drag handle once to show a menu to just move up or down one in content, or click and drag to place the item exactly where you want it to go. Okay, so I've got this in place, right? That's what it's going to search for. Simple tor stop title and content, and it should generate an extra stop. So just make sure this doesn't brick. Didn't brick, so that's nice. We've got our little thing there, and then we'll say, hey, take a tour. And it just says 4 items. So the reason is because that lifecycle isn't implemented in vanilla HTML. It's only implemented in lit element. So if we look at Tour Finder, right? And this is why I did this in part. I occasionally know what I'm doing. So what we have here, let's actually see if I can't console log what SuperClass is. I'm not positive if it'll let me do that. Ooh, it did something at least. It said, hey, you're extending 2 different things here, but that's not super helpful to know what the base class is in this case. So let's do console.log that.first updated, because that would tell me if it has a first updated lifecycle. Oh, no, it wouldn't. I thought that would actually. I just need super. My bad. I think that was the issue. So let's see. So it's undefined there, but it is implemented in the other one. So while not flawless, that would be enough of a way to imply that I have a lit element or not. So I could say, let's go into here. I could say, hey, on connected and disconnected, and this would actually be a reason to use a vanilla lifecycle hook in this case instead of what I'm doing currently. So I am going to have to do that, like remove the thing from the page, add the thing to the page. So let's put in something about that. So, hey, look at that. That was nice. Just auto-completed to that little bit. Disconnect. Okay, so now we got a disconnected lifecycle and a connected lifecycle. Okay, and then in here, I'm going to say to do, make sure we remove the items on the tour if the element they are related to gets removed from the page. So that could be an instance you have some conditionally loading functionality. This thing, hey, you want to take a tour of this thing because it's there, or maybe it even supplies a new tour for like a mini tutorial about something. And then when it goes away, we got to rip it back out of the tour because we don't want it sitting there bloating it up. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to actually add this to connected. And the super.connectedCallback implies, hey, run the stuff before me. So what I'm going to do, I'll do this just to be safe, is I'm going to say, if not super.first updated, which means that the thing calling this doesn't have a first updated lifecycle. If we don't have a first updated lifecycle, let's call connected then to make sure that it fires. And we'll put in a little All right, we'll put in that. So it ran once. Awesome. Didn't run the other time. That's what we wanted there. It says cannot read property inner HTML of null. Okay. So it's implying that it did run here. That's great. But it's saying it can't find it off of inner HTML. So, there's HTML. When does that get run? The render function. Okay, when does the render function get run? Render function gets run in the constructor. So that should happen before the connected lifecycle. Let's see. Maybe I need to make sure that. No, that wouldn't make a ton of sense. Let's see what that error is again. Maybe I don't have it implemented the right way. Cannot read property inner HTML of null. This is line 57, which there's a warning. Yeah. What's 19? Just goes back there. Cannot read inner HTML null. So it's claiming there's no query selector. That's the first one that has HTML. Let's see. So that's implying that stop title is null. Good to know. So let's console log items because it is finding items, so that's cool. And then perhaps it's because I did this and it didn't care for that. I didn't do this with the other one. So, all right, so let's do data title. And then we'll make another div. Oh, actually, I already have one. We'll just get rid of this one. So then we've got this other one in slot tour. Let's see if that helps. It might have to be at the level. I don't think that's the case, though. So it did discover it. That's cool. It's still throwing this error, though. Right? And it did it on connected. So it has Hack's context item. Let's see if it has an inner HTML. Might not. Outer HTML is that. Does it have children? Child node list, children, doesn't have any. Huh. Well, now that's interesting. Oh, you know what? I see what I did. I wanted it to point to this specific item. Okay. So this is why color coding. People don't like HTML in JavaScript types of stuff. So this is confusing looking. What it actually is I need to have it be in the Hack's context item menu because this is a child of that. So this should actually move up a level. Well, these things should move in a level is why that's confusing. I see. Okay. That should find it now. Error went away. Take a tour. There's 5 stops. Next stop. We're learning about the content map and that thing. Boom. Now you know how the drag handle works. So I always enjoy leaving the blemishes, stumble along the way. So yeah, that's what I had planned to show is just that this is part of the decision tree involved when we say, oh, I think I could reuse that over and over again, save myself some effort, and make a superclass. So we don't always make superclasses, and by we, I mean if your name is BTO Pro, you don't make superclasses all the time. If you're Nikki, though, you make like 10,000 superclasses and abstract away until you only have like one line in the thing, and then you smash them all together. It makes a lot of sense for certain elements, particularly around accessibility. I know a lot of the elements we've made around accessibility have overlapping pieces for things like the color contrast. I don't do a ton of that convention because I feel like it ties you into an ecosystem. So I try as much as possible to limit those to very specific types of things. If I have primitives, or what I consider like a new type of a primitive, even though a web component isn't an HTML primitive, I try to limit those as much as possible, unless I really need the consistency provided by that. So for example, if we were to use our license element, I believe is a good example. License. So if we fire up the license code, we will see that license pulls in a thing called schema behaviors, right? And leverages it in this way. And the reason that we wanted schema behaviors involved, and this is vanilla, it'll work in whatever, although it does have, kind of for more deeper integration with, I lied, it's lit element. So it basically implies what you're working on is lit element, but it provides this consistent piece of functionality for whatever it's wrapped into, to say, well, if this is a schematic element, I need to set a certain property like a prefix or a resource ID, or like this stuff starts to get into what like the spiders that crawl your website are involved in. That's going to be a very consistent design pattern. And so I want any number of elements to be able to correctly communicate with the DOM in a consistent way, so that spider hits us correctly. So that's certainly an edge case, and you'll notice there isn't just like thing on thing on thing on thing. I also try not to do superclasses with stuff that's stylistic, although we have found some interesting use cases where that's still useful. So if you want to get the code for this, it'll be up on the simple popover or on elements / hacks-body is where all the hacks elements are if you want to piece through it. Otherwise, have a great Friday.